This is SpeakNow.tv. Using today's digital platform to create a public forum, offering varying opinions to engage, educate, and energize you on topics from education to economic bailouts, debt crisis to deficit spending, marketplace health insurance to minimum wage. You're invited to join the discussion with SpeakNow.tv.
Hello and welcome to SpeakNow.tv, the interactive television program that allows you to speak out and speak now on the issues that affect you. Today's segment is about a number of issues that affect our community and perhaps you personally. These are issues that are vital to the existence of a free and democratic society. The issues include voter apathy, why African Americans vote for Democrats all the time, Toledo's water problem, and much, much more. And here with me to discuss these issues is Mr. Jay Black, who is president of the African American Chamber of Commerce. And Mr. Black, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show again. Now, we're talking about the issue of voter apathy. Tell me, can you shed light on this issue?
Well, some of the lame excuses I hear, Doctor, is my vote won't count, or nothing's going to change, so why should I waste my time voting? And most of us, especially our young people, don't appreciate the historical perspective of where we came from to this point. Absolutely. In terms of voting and what the costs were. And I believe if we truly understood that and embraced that every eligible black person that could vote would vote, because we paid a tremendous price to vote, to have the right to vote. Secondly, we need to be re-educated as to why it's important to vote. From my perspective, we don't have an option of not voting, because we can't change things legislatively unless we vote.
I completely agree with you. But here, quickly, let me say this. Don't you think that there are other underlying issues that cause people to not vote?
Absolutely. For instance, the voter suppression effort by certain folks, making it harder for the disenfranchised to vote. I'll give you a perfect example. This last election in May, and I don't know why I didn't know that the early voting center would not be open on a Saturday leading up to the election, but I went and it was closed. Mm-hmm. Now, many of us, if that happened to many of us, mm-hmm. they'd become frustrated and not vote at all. Mm-hmm. So I had to make a conscious effort to remember to vote that Tuesday.
And truly, you are absolutely right. Personally, that would energize me to really vote. Right. When that happens.
It made me more determined.
But don't you think that the daily struggle sometimes overshadow, the issue of voting, the daily struggles that people go through? You and I might have the ability or the opportunity to do a lot of things. We have the time to go out and do some, leisurely things. The issue there is, if you're having a hard time, you're having a hard time fending for yourself and for your family. Sometimes that's the least of the things you think about.
You're exactly right. When you're caught up into just surviving day to day, voting is not on the list of priorities.
Now tell me.
But let me keep that thought, Doctor.
Okay.
But that's why it's important that we do everything we can do to make it convenient for people and easy for people to vote.
I know. When you and I were talking, you gave an example about the importance of voting. Can you just share that with the audience?
Well, coming up, my grandfather used to say to us kids in my family that a black man in America who has the opportunity to vote and doesn't vote is no better than a communist. Now just think about that. we all believe that communism is bad. That was his way of instilling in us that you have to vote, and you want to vote for people that represent your interests. Anymore, if I don't understand the issues, or if I don't haven't had a personal interaction with local candidates, I don't vote for them.
And sometimes it takes just a number of votes to make the difference between a candidate that you like and one that does not represent the issues that you espouse. Hold that thought for a second. We'll be right back. I know you have a good example for our audience. Just hold that thought for a second. Okay. We'll be right back. And welcome back to SpeakNow.tv. Just a moment ago, we were talking about voter apathy,
right,
and we were talking about how important it is for folks to vote. Can you continue with the thought that you had?
Sure. To the people who believe that their vote doesn't count, in last November's at-large council race, Councilman Larry Sykes,
that's in Toledo, Ohio,
in Toledo, won by a mere 8 votes. Now, if 9 people who voted for Larry would have stayed home, he would not have won that election. But a mere 8 votes. So it underscores the importance of every eligible voter voting.
I agree with you. I could not agree more. I think it's important, and I think we need to continue this topic to educate people, because when you don't have the pertinent education, it can be an issue. We've got to continue to educate voters that their votes do count.
Right, and not only educating them to vote, but educating them to only vote for those individuals and those issues that are going to represent their interests, like other groups do.
I agree with you. Now, let's quickly turn to an issue that engulfed us not too long ago, the issue of the high levels of algae in our water system, in Toledo's water system. Now, I read a letter from the EPA that went to the mayor long before this issue erupted. The question is, the letter was sent in June, and this issue came up in August, not too long ago, I believe. Was that the 2nd or so?
Right, last weekend.
Last weekend. The question is there anything that the mayor could have done differently? That's what people are asking, to have affected the outcome.
Yeah, well, a couple of things, and I only know this because I used to work in city administration. And admittedly, Mayor Collins has said publicly that one of the things he could have done differently was communicate and alert people sooner. The algae problem was not going to change, regardless of who was mayor.
And why?
That there was a perfect storm that allowed a much higher concentration of algae to congregate around the water intake system. That has nothing to do with who was mayor. Okay, so from that perspective, I don't think he could have done anything differently.
So we can blame we can't blame the mayor for this.
And actually, I want to commend him on the way he handled it, because I personally believe that there was nothing different to be done. However, I want to raise a very important issue that most citizens of Toledo don't know about. This was not a Mike Collins problem. Several mayors prior to Mike Collins kicked the can down the road, and instead of dealing with this issue. I'm going to give you one example. There was a former mayor, and the name is not important, but challenged for years the EPA's suit against the city of Toledo for allowing sewage to seep into the Maumee River.
I may be wrong, but I understand
Yep.
it's Mayor Cardi Finkbeiner. But go ahead.
I'm upset as a citizen because had that consent decree, that lawsuit been settled 20 years ago versus when it was settled, it would have been less costly to you and I as consumers.
So they were more or less in denial.
And it was a lawsuit that we were never going to win. You don't win lawsuits against the federal government very often.
I agree with you.
And most people lose sight of that. But my point is this, Doctor. Had those kinds of issues been dealt with 20 to 25 years ago, perhaps we wouldn't have had the problem that we had last Saturday.
Wonderful. I think the community would definitely have a better understanding of this issue, because some are beginning to blame Mayor, the mayor, and I agree with you. I think he did a great job and should not be blamed for this problem.
Now, the solution going forward, and if there's any positives to come out of this, it has drawn national and even international attention to an issue that's been here all along. What I would like to see is the federal government and maybe the state governments step up and appropriate money, grants, and I'm not interested in loans, but grants to help us rebuild this water facility. If you've ever gone to the Collins Park treatment facility, you'll be amazed at how bad it is out there.
Well, I think you've made the point. We're hoping that both actually the state and the federal governments would listen and provide some support to make this work. And once again, let's just take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome to SpeakNow.tv. I'm Dr. Francis Dumbuya. Jack Ford and Edna Brown are two well-known African-American politicians. They're longtime politicians in Toledo, Ohio, that belong to the Democratic Party. Edna Brown is a state senator representing the 11th District. She sponsored a number of successful bills at the state level, while Jack Ford is currently a city councilman in the city of Toledo, and Jack, too, has done a lot of things since holding office. We will allow these two contestants at a later date to meet and shed light on the things that they will be doing for the Toledo, Ohio. We will allow both of these politicians a chance to tell Toledoans why they believe they're worthy of being elected to the positions they're currently seeking. But here's the issue. Jack has been in politics longer than Edna. He's held office as a councilman, a state representative, the mayor of Toledo, a board member for the Toledo public school system, and currently a councilman again in the city of Toledo. Even after just being elected, Jack now wants to run to replace Edna Brown as senator at the state level. And to discuss these issues, because a number of people have a problem with that, because Jack is African American and so is Edna Brown. And currently the community is really just torn apart. They have issues with that. And let me turn back to Mr. Jay Black, again, who is the president of the Toledo Chamber African-American Chamber of Commerce. I have a problem saying that. Sorry about that.
Okay.
But he represents an organization that seeks economic development in the African-American community.
That's correct.
Now, we're talking about Jack Ford and Edna Brown. What's your take?
Well, this one is filled with irony from a couple of different perspectives. First of all, Jack was a political mentor to Edna Brown years ago.
Oh, wow.
I have a personal knowledge of Jack Ford as a politician because I worked for him in city government. And two things I know about him is that he's a very, very intelligent guy and a very shrewd politician. And while I have not talked to Jack about this, I have spoken to Edna about it. I've not known Jack to enter any political race if he didn't feel he could win. So he must feel that Edna is vulnerable. Now, having said that and spoken with Edna, she can't understand, and she's pretty disappointed that he's decided to run against her as an independent. Okay, and all the former races that he's run as a Democrat. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard from folks in our community that are either outraged or just plain confused. Because a very important issue that Edna has brought out is that if Jack does run, and that's still up for there's still a question as to whether his name is going to be allowed to stay on the ballot. There's a hearing, I believe, August 23rd at the local Board of Elections to determine that. But if he is allowed to run, that could very well split the Democratic vote.
Absolutely.
And open the door for whoever the Republican candidate is to win that seat.
But again, I personally have a problem with that. I just believe personally that it's tough enough for African Americans in this country, period. Mm-hmm. And Toledo is even tougher. So that when one attains a certain position, I believe other than going against them, it's a right thing to do to support them. While others say, well, it's politics. He has a right to do or to run for any position. My problem with that is this. Jack Ford has become, he started by being a councilman. I was in Toledo when that happened. Jack Ford went to the state level and became a state rep. Jack Ford came back, became a mayor. And Jack Ford, after becoming a mayor, decided to run for the school board system and became a board member. Mm-hmm. And I recall quite vividly, how the game was played then as well. Now, Jack Ford came back after all that and ran for city council. I mean, how many positions, if he hasn't done much of anything, in all of these positions, what really makes him feel that he's more qualified, well-equipped to replace Edna? And most of all, could he have run for a different position and leave Edna alone? I just think, this is my personal opinion, I think it's unfair, and I think it just goes to tell you that you should not trust a politician. And that's what people will see coming out of this. But I assure you, that's going to split the African American vote.
Well, I can tell you that opinion that you just articulated, I've heard time and time again in our community. People are upset with Jack because of this. But politics is politics. And I've always said all career politicians are the same. All of them, regardless of party affiliation. From this perspective, I believe, and this is Jay Black's personal opinion, that career politicians will say and do whatever they feel
anything
they need to say or
to
do
get
to
elected.
Because it's a job. Most people don't understand this is their profession.
But the issue is this: where are the scruples? Where are our morals? I mean, at some point in time, you draw a line.
That's a very valid
Jack
question.
is close to over 70. He's a statesman. He's well respected. What more? How much more? What does he want? Why can't he just support others? Why can't he support local leadership with the young African Americans in Toledo? Why would he go after a vulnerable representative such as Edna Brown? I think that there might be a backlash there come November. Again, that is if he's allowed to run.
Well, again, your position is similar to every other position that I've heard personally. And again, without talking to Jack, I don't know the answers to that. I think we need to give Jack to come on the opportunity on this show and state his position on it.
But folks, this is SpeakNow.tv, and we will allow both Jack and Edna the opportunity to come and articulate their position and to come and tell you why they deserve their vote. And perhaps Jack will be able to explain why he thinks he ought to go against another African American to represent you. Once again, this is SpeakNow.tv.
If you've had a difficult time setting goals or trying to achieve your goals, if you've thought about starting your own business, if you've wondered about the different ways to organize a business you'd like to start, then Dr. Francis Dumbuya, educator, political and economic commentator, personal development expert, and author, may be able to set you on the path to success through his 2 powerful programs, How They Got There, Mastering the Winning Strategies of Successful People, and Strategies and Insights to Success. Dr. Dumbuya has done all the research, discovered the secrets he's found that drive successful entrepreneurs like Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban, BET founder and former Charlotte Bobcats owner Robert L. Johnson, and Facebook owner Mark Zuckerberg. What do you think Cuban, Johnson, or Zuckerberg would have paid today for the idea that has revolutionized their world? If you desire to achieve meaningful goals, personal or business, place your order now. How They Got There, Mastering the Winning Strategies of Successful People, and Strategies and Insights to Success.
This is SpeakNow.tv, and I'm Dr. Francis Dumbuya. And here with me again is Mr. Jay Black, the president of the African American Chamber of Commerce. Welcome one more time.
Thank you for having me, Doctor.
Let's talk about voter apathy, and let's talk about, one more time, and let's talk about why the African American voters are so locked in with the Democratic Party. Why the allegiance? Can you explain to me, and what it's doing to the African American community itself?
Well, the best example I can give is my own. I've watched my parents, primarily my mom. My dad was a staunch Republican, but my mom and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles were all dyed-in-the-wool Democrats and voted primarily Democratic. So I grew up thinking that that was the thing to do because most of the people, and my dad was a Maverick, most of the people who were close to me, around me, were all Democrats. So that's the example that I had growing up. However, as I became an adult and educated myself in the realm of politics, I have come to learn that it's stupid for us as a community to have allegiance to any one party.
Absolutely.
Okay. The issue for us is we have to vote our interests and only support candidates and issues that support our interests.
So
I'm going to give you 2 examples
that
are near and dear to my heart. In the last presidential election, okay, there was over $2 billion spent in media buy. Less than 1% was spent to Black-owned media outlets. But yet, African Americans nationally support the Democratic Party overwhelmingly.
Because they're taken for granted. It's a given that they'll automatically vote, for the Democratic Party. It's almost like losing our ability to think and process, make decisions wisely.
But I always come from an economic perspective. This was an opportunity for the National Democratic Party to support our community economically. Over $2 billion was spent. They did not do it. Mm-hmm. That's just one example. Let me bring it home closer to a local example. There was a well-known politician, Edna Brown, who's been a dyed and loyal and true Democrat all of her professional political career. She was term limited, so she could no longer run for council. And she also was president of city council at one time. When she hung up her political spurs, she started asking local Democratic politicians to help her find a part-time job to supplement her retirement income. Mm-hmm. A part-time job to supplement her retirement income. She could get nobody to help her.
Well, again, that's what happens when you throw your allegiance without understanding what you're getting into.
Now, to drive the point further home, I just mentally one day got upset when I heard about that and made a list of white Democrats who landed on their feet as a result of the Democratic Party machine. And they were all put in or all attained high, well-paying jobs on the public dime, and they got there by the Democratic Party using their influence to help them get these positions.
So really?
But yet, when it came time for us to be taken care of, the good old party was nowhere to be found.
So really the storyline is this: no matter the party, one should not relinquish their ability to make decisions. One should not just go out and vote for the Democratic Party just because they're African American or even because they're Caucasians. The point is think and process and make sure the party that you're voting for is in line with your values. So again, we're going to close this show at this point. I once more want to thank Mr. J. Black, and I would like to close by saying this. We've discussed a number of issues today. We talked about, again, voter apathy. We've talked about the Toledo City water problem. We've talked about, again, why individuals should just go out and vote for the Democratic Party and why it's bad to not really think and make decisions independently. And my point to you is this: these are issues that are important. They really do affect you. They affect the community. We want to hear from you. We want you to go to speaknow.tv and tell us what you think, because these issues help shape policy. And what we're doing here will help you in the future and will help our community to make better decisions and to benefit our community economically. Once again, I thank you and I thank Mr. J. Black.